Post-war Britain was a nation of careful choices. Petrol was expensive, roads were narrow, and most working families simply wanted a roof overhead and a reliable engine beneath them. Speed was a luxury nobody could afford. But even within that modest, fog-dusted era, some cars were shockingly, almost willfully slow. Today on Britain Rewind we are counting down 10 of the most underperforming British cars from the entire 1950s. These are the machines that tested patience, strained marriages, and made every hill feel like a mountain. And when we reach number 1, you will genuinely question how it was sold at all. Number 10. Ford Popular 100e. Ford Popular. The name practically radiates stubborn British resolve. Launched in 1953, the 100e represented something genuinely admirable, motoring stripped down to its absolute core. But driving one regularly tested even the most patient of souls. Beneath that boxy, upright body sat a 1,172cc side valve engine borrowed almost directly from the pre-war era, producing a humble 30 brake horsepower. That engine was genuinely ancient technology by the time the Popular reached showrooms, and Ford knew it. Top speed hovered around 62 miles per hour, downhill, with a favorable wind, and considerable optimism. Getting there from standstill took roughly 32 seconds. Could you imagine joining a dual carriageway in that? The 3-speed gearbox required careful, deliberate attention, and overtaking required extraordinary planning, almost geographical in its scope. Yet over 155,000 were sold. Britain's working families adored the Popular because it was affordable, honest, and utterly dependable, just never, ever quick. But the next entry makes even this Ford feel positively rapid. Number 9. Standard 8. The Standard 8 arrived in 1953 wearing its austerity honestly, like a man in a sensible grey suit who never once complained. Built by the Standard Motor Company in Coventry, it was designed entirely around cost reduction, and it showed. Under the bonnet lived an 803cc 4-cylinder engine producing just 26 brake horsepower. That is not a misprint. 26. Top speed was officially quoted at 62 miles per hour, though reaching it required both patience and a very long, flat road. The 0 to 60 time was an extraordinary 43 seconds, longer than some people's entire lunch breaks. Early models even omitted a heater as standard, forcing owners to chip away frost from the inside of their own windscreens on winter mornings. Yet the Standard 8 sold remarkably well. Over 136,000 found buyers who valued simplicity above sensation. Would you actually drive one of these across the Pennines today? The next car had equally modest ambitions and equally miserable results. Number 8. Austin A30. Austin's A30 was a lovable little machine, and when it arrived in 1951 it offered something many ordinary British families had never quite dreamed possible, a proper family saloon that a working man could genuinely afford. But that affordability carried a very specific penalty. The same 803cc A-series engine that also powered the Standard 8 lived under the A30's rounded bonnet, delivering just 28 brake horsepower with no apology whatsoever. 0 to 60 took an extraordinary 46 seconds according to road tests from the period. Top speed was officially 62 miles per hour, though independent verification was rarely possible. That said, the little Austin's 4-speed gearbox gave it one mechanical advantage: drivers could at least keep the engine singing, which offered some psychological comfort if very little actual progress. Approximately 224,000 A30s were manufactured before the improved A35 replaced it in 1956. Charming, honest, and defiantly slow. But the next car on our list makes the A30 seem genuinely brisk. Number 7. Morris Minor Series 2. The Morris Minor is perhaps the most beloved small car Britain ever produced, and very few would argue against that claim. But the Series 2 variant, sold between 1952 and 1956, carried a rather embarrassing secret under that gently curved bonnet. Despite its charming, almost cartoon-like appearance, the early Minor used the same archaic 803cc A-series 4-cylinder engine producing just 27 brake horsepower, 2 less than the Austin A30. That fractional difference was academic. performance was essentially indistinguishable from crawling. A 30 to 50 mph acceleration run took nearly 11 seconds, making motorway overtaking a theoretical concept rather than a practical one. The miner's handling, however, was actually quite progressive for its era, light, responsive, and pleasantly communicative. It almost made you forget how breathlessly slow it was. Almost. Yet the public loved every single inch of it, and over 1.6 million were eventually built. But our next entry dispensed entirely with the idea of four wheels altogether. Number 6. Reliant Regal Mark I. 3 wheels. Fiberglass body. A 747cc engine that sounded considerably more determined than it actually was. The Reliant Regal Mark I, produced by Reliant of Tamworth from 1952, was a vehicle that occupied a strange legal and mechanical grey area, technically classified as a motorcycle, which meant owners could drive it on a motorcycle license and save on road tax. In practice, however, it was a cramped, unstable, and deeply underpowered small van or family car, depending on which variant you chose. Power output stood at a modest 16 brake horsepower from its overhead valve 4-cylinder unit. Top speed reached approximately 55 mph, and acceleration was best described as gradual. On wet or uneven roads, the single front wheel created handling characteristics that were genuinely alarming to the uninitiated. Yet Reliant sold these three-wheelers in extraordinary numbers throughout the decade. Most younger drivers today have never seen one in person. But the next entry makes the Regal look positively nimble. Number 5. Berkeley B60. Berkeley sports cars are a genuinely forgotten chapter of British motoring history, and most enthusiasts today have never encountered one. The B60, launched in 1956 by the Berkeley Coachwork Company of Biggleswade, was extraordinary in both its ambition and its considerable limitations. Weighing just 635 pounds, it was constructed from fiberglass around a lightweight framework originally designed for touring caravans. But propelling this featherlight body was a 322cc Anzani 2-stroke twin-cylinder engine producing a reported 15 brake horsepower. 15. The B60 officially reached 65 mph, impressive for its displacement, but in practice the two-stroke engine vibrated intensely, overheated readily, and demanded an almost constant mechanical sympathy that most owners struggled to provide. The tiny 4-speed motorcycle-derived gearbox added drama to every journey. Yet the car looked properly sporty, low, wide, and surprisingly purposeful for its size. Berkeley built around 1,673 examples before moving to a larger engine. But the next entry on our list abandoned sporting pretensions entirely. Number 4. AC Petite. There are microcars, and then there is the AC Petite. Built by AC Cars of Thames Ditton, the same company that would later become famous for its powerful Cobra sports cars, the Petite arrived in 1953 as something altogether different. It was a tiny, egg-shaped three-wheeler aimed squarely at the most budget-conscious end of the market. A single-cylinder 346cc VS 2-stroke engine sat mounted at the rear, producing 8 brake horsepower. 8. From standstill, the Petite struggled to reach 50 mph under any reasonable conditions, and many owners reported that their example rarely managed even that. The single-cylinder engine fired with such irregular enthusiasm that passengers sometimes couldn't distinguish between acceleration and engine failure. The body was fiberglass, the interior was Spartan, and the driving experience was essentially a mechanical exercise in faith. Yet AC built approximately 2,000 of them. Few examples survive today, making them rare curiosities. But wait, the next car makes the Petite feel luxurious. Number 3. Meadows Frisky. By 1957, Britain's microcar obsession had reached feverish proportions, and the Meadows Frisky arrived to feed that hunger with typical post-Suez frugality. Built by Henry Meadows Limited of Wolverhampton, a company better known for industrial and marine engines, the Frisky was a tiny 4-wheeled runabout with ambitions considerably larger than its mechanical specification. Early versions used a 249cc VIA single-cylinder 2-stroke engine producing 9 brake horsepower, which in the context of hills, passengers, and luggage, was woefully insufficient. Top speed was quoted at 55 miles per hour, a figure that required both a clear road and considerable atmospheric assistance. The gear change was an unusual floor-mounted arrangement that confused many new owners. And the Frisky's handling on corners was, charitably speaking, adventurous. Yet the car attracted genuine interest from a British public desperate for cheap, economical transport during the Suez fuel crisis. Very few survive today in original condition. And the next entry was worse in almost every measurable way. Number 2. Bond Mini Car Mark C. 3 words that, to a certain generation of British motorists, conjure images of raw, unfiltered mechanical minimalism. Lawrence Bond's extraordinary creation had been evolving since 1949, and the Mark C variant, produced from 1952, represented a kind of optimistic plateau in its development. Powered by a 197cc Veer single-cylinder 2-stroke engine mounted at the front, producing 8.6 brake horsepower, the Mark C was capable of 50 miles per hour, though reaching it was an experience few described with enthusiasm. The engine drove the single front wheel directly, meaning the entire steering mechanism rotated with the engine on corners. This created handling behavior that could genuinely be called unusual. Hills were a genuine concern. Passengers sat in single file. There was no reverse gear in early models. Parking required the driver to lift and rotate the front of the car by hand. Remarkable. Roughly 3,000 Mark CS were built. Believe it or not, number 1 is far worse. Number 1, the Gordon. This is the big one. The Gordon was produced by Vernon Industries of Bidford-on-Avon from 1954, and it represented the absolute nadir of British microcar engineering. A brutally stark 3-wheel device, the Gordon used a rear-mounted 197cc Veer's 2-stroke engine producing a deeply theoretical 8.5 brake horsepower. Theoretical, because contemporary road testers found the figure wildly optimistic. Top speed was advertised at 45 miles per hour, a claim that invited open ridicule in the period motoring press. In practice, even with just one passenger aboard, many Gordons struggled to hold 30 miles per hour on level ground. Any meaningful gradient brought progress to something genuinely agricultural. The body was a plywood and aluminium shell draped over tubular steel framing, with the structural rigidity of an ambitious cardboard box. Early examples offered no heating, no ventilation beyond gaps in the bodywork, and almost no instrumentation. Just 400 were ever produced. Barely any survive today. And every single one was almost undriveable. And there it is, 10 astonishing examples of British motoring austerity from the 1950s. From the humble Ford Popular to the almost surreal Gordon, these machines tell a story of a nation rebuilding itself one slow, determined mile at a time. They weren't glamorous. They weren't fast. But they were honest, they were British, and they were remarkable in their own endearing way. If you've enjoyed this journey through Britain's slowest decade on 4, and occasionally 3, wheels, please subscribe to Britain Rewind for more stories like this. And let us know in the comments, which one shocked you most?